Hello everyone, my name is Ismail and welcome to my channel MiTutorials. In this tutorial, I will be teaching you how to create this stunning looking visual using native visuals within Power BI. Now this is a heat map combined with a bar chart and a column chart along with usage of the field parameters. Just to explain what is going through this particular visual over here, I have now selected the sales value, which is the absolute value, and I have my subcategory defined on the rows over here and my months here on the column section. And I'm now displaying the total sales here by month, and on this particular visual or the bars that you see over here, it is displaying the total sales for that particular subcategory. And on the below column chart over here, it is displaying the total sales here by month. In one view, you are able to see the sales amount by month and by category. You are also able to see the sales amount here by the subcategory, the total sales amount by the subcategory, and you are also able to see the total sales amount by month as well. And with a click of a button over here, it will now change towards showing you the percentages of total. So if you look at this particular bar chart over here, it is showing you that the atta and flour category has contributed to 6.2% of your total sales amount. Likewise, if you come down to soft drinks over here, soft drinks has contributed the highest of about 13.5%. And when you look at this particular column chart over here, you can see that 23.2% of the sales have happened in the September month alone, and 4.5% in the month of August, which is the least selling month. Now, all of this information is made available to you just by using three visuals and combining them into one, which will help you gain a lot of insights into your sales data, which will help you make that critical decision making. So I'm sure you're excited to know how to create this. So without further ado, let's get started with this tutorial. Let me show you the data set that I have over here. It's a very simple data set wherein I have my orders table over here, which has the sales information, and then I have my calendar table created, which is basically connected to the orders date field from my orders table. So let's go back over here and start building our visual. So before that, I have also added a new measure over here, which is basically calculating my sum of sales amount. This is very basic, right? So let's come back over here and let's add a new matrix visual. And if I go over here in the row section, let's bring in the subcategory, and under columns over here, I'm going to bring in the month from my calendar table, and then in the value section here, I can bring in my total sales amount. Now I have my total sales by subcategory and by month. So let's go to the format pane over here and turn off the subtotals for column and row totals because I don't need them. And then let's go to the row headers over here and turn off the banded row color. This will basically return clean, plain white background. And now we are sorted with our sales value. Now we will have to create another measure to calculate the percentage of total. So to do that, I'm going to go back over here and create a new measure here. Let's call this measure as percentage of total. I'm going to start by defining a couple of variables over here. The first variable here, let's call this as filtered sales is equals to, I'm going to say calculate sum of my sales amount from my orders table. Now you might ask, why am I not referring to the total sales measure which I have already created? The reason why I'm not doing that is because in case if I want to dynamically format my measure, I will not be able to refer to this particular measure. That is why I'm creating another variable over here. And then I'm going to create another variable here. I'm going to call this as all except sales is equals to, I'm going to say calculate sum of my sales amount, comma, all except my orders table and then subcategory column. This is the column that we have used here in the row context. So what this second measure is doing is it is calculating the sum of sales amount by ignoring all the filters that have been applied to the subcategory. So basically this will now return the sum of the entire row over here. So, and then I'm going to type in my return statement. I'm going to say return, then use the divide function over here, and then I'm going to say filter sales, comma, and then all except sales. I'm going to close the bracket here and press enter. Now let's go back to build a visual pane and then get rid of total sales and then bring in the percentage of total that we created. Now if you look at this, it is now calculating the percentage of total here by the row. And now it's time for us to build a parameter here which will basically help us switch between the absolute values and the percentage values. So let's do that. Let's go to the modeling tab, click on new parameter and then click on fields over here. Let's call this parameter as dynamic values. And from the field section over here, I'm going to go to the percentage of total and then also check in my total sales, add slicer to this page. I'm going to click on create. A slicer will get added to our page over here. So if you want, you can make some changes. Let's go back to my dynamic values page over here. Instead of percentage of total is fine. Instead of total sales, I'm going to just call this as dollar sales. Oops, dollar sales, and press confirm. Let's make some formatting changes to this particular slicer over here. Let's come down here and choose vertical list, and then from selection, let's turn on single select, and also let's turn off the slicer header. And now we have our slicer created. So now what we need to do is we need to get rid of the percentage of total from the values over here. Instead, I'm going to add the value here from the dynamic values. And now you see that it is returning the same percentage value. But when I click on sales over here, this is now returning the absolute values here for those months and those subcategories. And now it's time for us to add that gradient here to our matrix, which will create that heat map kind of an effect. So to do that, let's head over to the format pane, and under cell elements over here, let's turn on the background color. So after you do that, you can click on this little FX button over here in case if you want to change some of the colors over here. And let's say if I want to choose a little darker or lighter color to the lowest value, and for the highest value I want to go a little darker color, and I can do that. And then I'm going to click on OK, and now you see that it's a little darker color. And you can see that most of the sales have happened in the month of September, which is denoted by the darker shade of blue over here. And now when I click on percentage of total, I don't have the formatting here. So let's go back into the cell element section and turn on background color here and repeat the same process. I'm going to highest value over here, little darker shade of blue, and then click OK. And now when you're changing between the percentage of total and sales value, you see that the formatting, the background color remains the same. There's one issue, however, that I can see over here is the size of the table keeps changing whenever I switch between the percentage and total sales. So to fix this, I'm going to select the absolute values over here and head over to the format section and search for auto width. Under column headers options, there is an option here which says auto size width, and then you can turn this off. And now when you switch between percentage of total and total sales amount, the size of the table remains the same. And now it's time for us to add those bars over here. So to add those bars, I'm going to add a new visual over here. I'm going to start by adding data here. So what I want here is basically subcategory. I don't need my months to appear over here. Go here to the orders section, click on subcategory, and then click on add data, go back to orders and bring in my total sales amount. And now I have the bar chart created over here. So let's make some formatting changes over here. Let's head over to the format tab, turn off your x-axis, and then turn off the title. Let's also get rid of the total sales title that I have over here, and then let's also get rid of the subcategory title over here. And now we need to have the subcategories sorted in the same way in both of these visuals. So to do that, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to sort by subcategory. So this is now sorted. Let's sort ascending. And let's repeat the same process over here as well. I'm going to sort by subcategory here and then sort axis ascending so that I have my categories in the same order. And now I can just simply expand this a little so that I can accommodate all of them over here. And let's turn on the data labels on this particular visual here. I'm going to turn on the data labels, and then I can choose where I want my data labels to appear. In this case, I want my data labels to appear in the inside end. And then let's add a decimal value over here. Let's go to the values here and select one decimal value here. And now we can get rid of the axis as well. So I'm going to delete the axis now. and now we can start aligning this particular chart over here. Let's also turn off the background in this case, and now let's align the bar chart here with our matrix. So you see that the bars here are not matching with the matrix that we have. So to match them, what we will do is let's go back and click on the matrix visual over here, and let's scroll down to grid, and let's turn on the horizontal grid lines and the vertical grid lines over here. And then we can start by increasing the width of them, let's say about 2, and increase the vertical grid lines width as well. And now let's increase the size of our matrix over here. Now since the width of these columns are smaller than expected, so let's go back and search for auto, and then turn on auto size over here, and then turn off, and so that all of them are now aligned properly. And now let's go back to our bar chart over here, and then let's try and align them as much as possible. And now you can see that they are perfectly aligned over here. And now let's go back to the formatting section of my bar chart over here, and then let's go to the bars and then change the gradient over here. I'm going to come here, select gradient, and choose the same blues that we chose earlier, and then I'm going to click on OK. And now you see that we've got the same sort of gradient color over here, but we have got this particular legend. So let's turn off the legend, and now you see that our values are now aligned. So based on this particular visual, you can clearly say that the soft drinks has the highest amount of sales when compared to the other categories here, followed by the cakes category. Likewise, if you switch to percentage of total, this will not switch to percentage of total because we have not used the total sales or the dynamic value over here. So let's get rid of total sales instead, and on the x-axis over here, let's choose the dynamic values from our field parameter. And now you see that our values are beginning to show as 100%, which is not correct, but when we go to sales, this is correct. So what is happening here is basically, when we created our measure here for percentage of total, we are calculating this all except the subcategories. So what is happening is we are now calculating the total of subcategories by subcategories. So this is returning the value as 100. So we will have to change the filter context over here. On this visual now, we now have to compare the total sales amount here by the row, and then compare that particular sales by the sales of the entire table here. So to change the way we calculate, right, in this particular matrix over here, we will have to check if I have months appearing in my column section over here. In this case, I don't have the months, hence the values are not correct. So to do that, I will have to make use of a function which basically checks whether I have my months column present in my visual or not. So to do that, what I will do is I will make use of in scope function over here. This will basically check if my specified column is available in the hierarchy levels or not. So which is my month column over here. So this will basically return either it is true or false. So I'm going to then pass this within an if function over here. If my calendar month is in scope, then I want this particular section of code to execute. If it is not, then I need another set of code to run. So which basically we'll start by defining a variable over here. I'm going to call this as all sales. I'm going to say is equals to calculate sum of my total sales amount. Here I'm going to pass in the function called all. This will basically remove all the filters from the current context. So I'm going to define my orders table over here, and then I'm going to close the bracket here, and then I'm going to copy this particular piece of code over here and paste it again, and then I'm going to say return divide, and my numerator here is going to be my all except sales followed by all sales. I'm going to close the bracket here and close the bracket again here to close the if condition, and then press on OK. And now we have started to display the percentage of total here by the subcategory. We are ignoring the month context in these percentages over here. So if I change to sales over here, this is now showing me the sales amount, and if I change to percentage, on the matrix visual over here, when we are calculating the percentages, we are calculating the sum of this entire row and then dividing the value here by the value of Jan. right? But in this chart over here on the bar chart, we are calculating the sum of the entire table and then dividing the value here by the sum of the first subcategory over here. So that is how we are able to return the values over here. Now let's create a copy of this particular visual over here. Let's bring this down and let's go to build a visual pane over here. Let's get rid of subcategory. Instead, let's add the month over here. And we also need to change the visual type over here. Instead of bar, let's use a column chart over here. And now that I've created a column chart, let's go over here to the format section, go to Y axis and then select or click on invert range. Now the chart is inverted over here. Let's come back here and then let's resize this chart over here. And you see that all the data labels have now started to appear. In case if they don't appear, then you can go to data labels over here, go under values and play around with the size of this particular visual. And now I can just simply start aligning them in a way that it looks nice. There's not a lot of space between them. And now let's click on the matrix over here. Let's go to the format section, click on edit interaction and say do nothing for all of them. Let me reduce the size of the matrix over here. And then let me just bring this away so that I can interact with this particular visual and say do nothing. Likewise, click on this and say do nothing for others as well. And now you have your visual sorted. One last thing that you can do over here is select all of the visuals over here and then right click and select group and click on group. And now this has become one visual for you. And if you want to move around, you can do that. You can just select the visual here and move around in case if you want to, or increase the size, you can do that. And now when you click on percentage of total, this particular visual is now displaying all the totals here. And then when you click on the sales value here, this is now displaying the absolute values for all of those categories and months. So this was the tutorial which will help you create this unique heat map within Power BI just using native visuals. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. You learned something new today. Please consider subscribing to my channel for more such tutorials.